Hey, what's up, everyone? This is another episode of the Box and One podcast. Thanks for joining us. On today's episode, we'll be talking about the Raptors offseason moves, the Rogers Center, and potential plans to demolish it, and Greg Vanney stepping down as TFC manager. Make sure you subscribe to our channel on YouTube and hit the little bell to make sure you don't miss any of our content. Also, subscribe on to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen. Also, check out our last episode with Pat Benson Jr., where we discussed his book, Kobe Bryant Sneaker History. Really good episode. I strongly recommend that you listen to it. He's a really cool guy. Shout out to Pat. Been reading the book. Really enjoying it so far. So, boys, we're back together. It's been another few weeks. Yeah, but I mean, hey, we're at it again. Should we do a quick introduction? You think everybody knows us by now?
They know us. Let's go on.
Our family's familiar with us now. All right, so
in Denmark and Ireland, always a shout out.
Yeah. So let's start with the Raptors offseason moves. So just to recap some of what's been going on, Gasol out to the Lakers, Ibaka gone to the Clippers. We've brought in a few guys. So we have our two draft picks, Malachi Flynn, Jalen Harris, Alex Len is in, Aaron Baines, DeAndre Bembry. They have two Exhibit 10 contracts, Yuta Watanabe, and who was the other one? Ellison. So, I mean, I don't know that they really factor much into it. Also, obviously, the big signing, locking up Fred VanVleet, and re-signing Chris Boucher. So I know a lot of people were nervous when the first few days of the offseason were kind of panning out, and like they weren't really doing much of anything. I think their focus was obviously pretty much Fred VanVleet. You guys think that that they were really interested in anybody else during the offseason?
Serge was, the word is he was offered a 1-year, $12 million deal. The Clippers gave him a 2-year deal, $19 million, second year being a player option. So I guess Serge, it could have been a combination of preferring that security of having the second year, maybe also situating himself in LA where he can continue, where he can build his media career. That might be part of it as well. Both things combined, he ends up with the Clippers and with Kawhi again. Gasol, I never really thought. I think that I suspect that they zeroed in on him once it was clear Serge wasn't going to come back. I think that if they had their plan A, it would have been Serge returning on the 1-year deal, Boucher backing him up. Gasol, even though he can still play D, was starting to show his age. And there's still some things he does very well. Defense, screens, passing, but the offensive game is gone, and he's not the rebounder he was either. So better to let a guy walk a year too early than a year too late. But I'm not too concerned. I mean, it's clear that the plan is to keep as much flexibility for next offseason as possible. I think Aaron Baines is an interesting sign for 2-year deal, second-year option, so they're not locked in. Len, again, it's a 1-year deal. I believe it's 1 year, or if it's 2, it's the team option again. So Baines has developed a 3-point shot. He plays hard, plays D, will fit into that culture here. I expect internal growth from Pascal, and more internal growth of Pascal and Fred, OG for sure. So I think they're pretty much going to be what they've been the past few years, minus the Kawhi year where they were champs. I think they'll be a very good team in the East, good enough to win a round or two, and they'll be well set up for next offseason.
Yeah, awesome. Any issues with losing Gasol or Ibaka?
No, I think what Pramit said makes sense, right? I mean, especially with Serge, giving him a 2-year deal, you want that flexibility available going into next offseason. So obviously, and Gasol, while he had his strengths, which when they acquired him, it was much needed. A big man who can move the ball around a little bit, but I think the rest of the game it isn't where it used to be. Offensively, he's no longer the player. So, yeah, I'm perfectly fine moving off from both of them.
Yeah, me too. I think it was time, and there were some stretches where Ibaka played some good basketball in the playoffs, but I think he's very replaceable. I prefer to have the flexibility, and I know Raptors Twitter was like they were going crazy when some of these moves were going down, some of the guys that we missed out on. But I don't see it. I don't know if some of these people are just kind of late to the game, and maybe they think that because we won a championship one year, we're going to be in the thick every year. And yeah, obviously that's the hope. But right now, when you're trying to plan for next year's free agent class, I don't think it made sense to just make any knee-jerk reactions and sign some of these guys who were out there. Harry Giles would have been nice. At one point I saw people throwing out Hassan Whiteside's name out there. I wanted no part of some of these guys that people were kind of freaking out that we lost. I'm okay with the moves that we made. I think when you look at it, we don't get wrapped up into any terrible contracts for an extended period of time. Not that Serge's would have been a terrible contract, but the flexibility for me is major when you don't want to get stuck into anything and kind of handcuff yourself for the next free agent class. So I'm cool with it. I'm happy that we didn't overpay for Fred. I think we were very fair in what we gave him, and I think the deal to me honestly works out on both sides. 4 years, $85 million, I believe it was. I said don't go too high into the 20s, and they didn't do that. So I think it was a good bit of business. What are you guys thinking about this year, though? So do you think we're a middle of the pack playoff team?
I think anywhere between 4 to 7 4 to 6 maybe, somewhere around that.
3 to 6. 3 to 6. Top 4 is in. So let's put it this way: the Raptors were the 2 seed after losing Kawhi. We didn't lose this year what we lost last year. And this is now that doesn't mean that past performance is no guarantee of future performance, but
we're not talking about mutual funds here, so
yeah. I'm not too concerned. I think that they're a good organization. They're an organization that develops players really well. Like I said, there's still a higher. I really believe that guys like Pascal and Fred and OG can get to one. There's one more level they can each get to, and I believe, assuming that they had their normal offseason due to the pandemic. Obviously Pascal has something to prove. Fred has something to prove now that he's getting paid. OG, I think he can take it up. He really, just as the year went on, got better. I think that he has a lot of upside. Norm, I don't know. Not as young as people say he is. I think he is. He's 27. He had a really, really good year, and he almost doubled his points per game. So when that happens, you question how sustainable that is. I would love for him to continue to be that good, but even if we see maybe a step back from him, I think that they will be fine. I think that their starting 5 is pretty solid. They play well together. They can defend like crazy. We'll see some more wacky stuff this year with their defense. I have them where they've been pretty much every year since the Rudy Gay trade.
Yeah, and I think the important thing is, in addition to getting that internal growth, I think we're going to see an evolution of the offense a little bit. You have throwing Aaron Baines in there, I think is really interesting, and in a year where Chris Boucher could potentially be seeing a lot of minutes. I think I saw somebody saying mid to high 20s. I don't think it's going to be that many. Probably low 20s is a good spot for Boucher, but I'm really interested to see how they can integrate him being a regular in the lineup. But I'm not. I think that's fair. I think 3 to 6, 4 to 7, that's probably where we're going to be, and I'm okay with that. I'm not going to be crazy to think that, given, the Kawhi year was a very unique year, and I'm not crazy enough to think that, after losing Kawhi, that we're still going to be necessarily at the top of the East this year. I didn't think we were going to be anywhere near the top of the East last year. But that doesn't mean that we can't compete every game. And Nurse has shown that he alone can change a series, can change games with his adjustments and what he's able to scheme up. So I think it's fair. Middle of the pack, that's fine. And then let's see what we're able to get out of next year. And I know there was some talk about some of the moves that we made and the contract that we gave. It may have been Len, where if you package him with a Norm and with somebody else, you could potentially work in a deal for Giannis, which I don't think that's happening. I don't think the Bucks are going to be trading him mid-season, but it's just interesting that we have some options open where we can fit somebody in like that under the cap.
Yeah. I don't think that. I mean, I think they're well set up to if a big fish becomes available at the deadline, they are set up to acquire that player. They have all of their picks moving forward. They have some young assets. They have.
That's my dog going crazy. Nice.
I think that they had a very good measured off season. I think winning a title takes that pressure off. Like, you don't have to go balls to the wall and make that big move all the time, right? Like, now they've won. Not that they are not trying. It's not that they're going out there to lose, but I don't think that there's that pressure to say, this is the year. This is the year. They've given themselves some runway to say, okay, we got that one title. We couldn't keep Kawhi. Our next big play, our play now is 2021. Now, again, there's still some uncertainty what's going to happen with Masai. They're certainly acting as if he's going to be here. I mean, he's definitely, and if he's not going to be here, whether it's Bobby that fully takes over, they're setting themselves up for 2021, and there's definitely no urgency on Masai's part. But I think his presence here is going to be a big deal for any free agents, especially if it is Giannis. I mean, a big part of that is going to be his relationship with Masai. So I guess these moves are I'm cautiously optimistic that they are acting as if Masai is going to be here long term. That he's not setting things up for his exit. So, I think that we're in good shape.
So, Azam, let me ask you a question. If let's say things don't pan out the way we hope they do next offseason, and we're not able to land that big fish, how are you feeling about kind of being a middle of the pack team for the next couple of years while we kind of figure things out? That's provided that, let's say, Pascal isn't able to take the next step and kind of carry the franchise.
That's interesting, because that was something I was going to ask you guys, and that's why I think flexibility becomes even more important, right? So we're all assuming they're going to go after Giannis, and that's the plan, and it's fairly obvious to us and probably pretty much everyone in the world right now. But if they don't, not having that, having that flexibility helps them reset a little bit as well, right? So for me, two things stand out. What's the next evolution of the existing guys on the roster is? Maybe that'll probably help set up that, okay, is it time to move on from people? And, maybe it's not a good idea to just be around that, second rounder playoff team, and you can take a step back and maybe reset a little bit. Or do you feel that you've seen enough growth further from Pascal or OG that, okay, maybe we can push for another conference final or something? So I think a lot will depend on how these guys evolve over the next season, right? What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, and not saying like that mediocrity is okay, but I mean, I've seen some bad years. We've all seen some bad years with this franchise. I don't think we're headed anywhere back to that. But I also don't want to see, next season, if we miss out on a guy like Giannis, I don't want to see them make any just like, moves where they feel pressured into just signing anybody. I'm okay with them kind of waiting to see what they have in their young guys, possibly moving for somebody, bring on a contract to see if they can fit them in. I think there are other ways other than just signing a big free agent in the offseason to improve this team. And, right now with Masai here, and provided he stays here, I trust him and Bobby Webster making the decisions and bringing the franchise into kind of the next stage.
Yeah, I'd agree.
All right, so I think we're all pretty much in agreement that it's not end of the world.
Really decent competitive team, as long as these guys continue to improve, right? So
exactly.
You'll have Lowry another year older, maybe no longer the same guy. Move on from him.
You have Fred.
You'll still have Fred. You'll still have Pascal, OG. Curious to see how Baines does this year. So should be fun.
Yeah, and the move that I'm actually most excited about, and maybe I'm crazy for actually thinking this, is the DeAndre Bembry signing. Just because I like that he's kind of, when they got him, it's kind of Rondé Hollis Jefferson-esque move, similar-ish type of player, except that he's probably a better ball handler, maybe a little bit better going to the basket and kind of creating for himself. But considering that he was I think it was a 21st overall pick not too long ago, he can play some D, he can get you some steals. Like him and Malachi Flynn are the two guys that I'm most looking forward to seeing. And so if you look at what they did in the draft with Flynn and Harris, the Bembry move, you can really see that what they're trying to do is get some guys who can create stuff going to the basket by themselves, which they were really lacking last year. They've got some more mobility at the center position. Maybe like we ran a lot, but maybe it's just a run and gun type offense where we're just going balls to the wall and we're going to run you to death.
So before we move on, I want to ask you guys, what do you think about the plan to play in Tampa, and how do you think that's going to make an impact over a full season?
I think they'll like it. They don't have to come here in the winter. Seriously, I mean, the ones that I think are rooted here, like somebody like a Lowry, it's a bit of an inconvenience because, like, a lot of guys that have been here long term are settled here, have lives here that, like, they have their own, their endorsement deals, their businesses, a lot of their other operation comes out of Toronto, so. That will be a bit of an inconvenience. That will be not a bit of it. It will be an inconvenience for them. But on the flip side, I think they may enjoy being in a warm weather place in the winter. They'll enjoy not having to go through customs for road trips. They'll probably, I think maybe the families will like it down there as well. And I mean, they love to live in temporary living arrangements, so that's drawback.
I want to ask one thing, and I'm starting to think a little bit. So, okay, initially when both NHL and NBA they did the bubble, and made sense, but we know long term it's impossible to do a full season in a bubble, right? It's really hard. But we're also starting to see, I mean, giving credit where credit's due, MLB finished the season on time. They did it well after the first initial hiccups with a few teams. For the most part, things ran well. There were a few cases here and there. We're starting to see soccer is doing it pretty well across. Like they're going to different countries, like, especially for Champions League, that's possible. I saw a cricket match, India-Australia, full house in Melbourne. They've almost eradicated. So that was pretty cool to see a full house crowd a couple of days ago. But do you think it still makes sense for the Canadian government to take the line that they're taking.
Yeah. Here's the thing. It's a bad look to lock, especially in Toronto. It's a really bad look to lock down a city and shut down businesses, but then let a sports team come in and cross the border, have special permission to cross the border. So I think just from an optics perspective, there is a lot of pushback. Sorry about that. They're facing a lot of pushback. And again, I'm not going to get into the debate as to whether or not a lockdown is the right thing or not, but it's just, how could you justify forcing restaurants and bars and things like that to shut down, but then say, hey guys, you guys can come back and forth from the States openly and travel around the city, even though the States cases are surging like crazy and you're going to be traveling into hotspot cities. Like, you can't do that.
Right.
So it's going to be, I think it'll be a really big inconvenience, I think, for staffers, like the ones who don't make a lot of money and may have to maintain 2 households, like the ones that may live in Toronto and have to now find accommodations in Tampa. I mean, who knows if the league or the team is paying for any of that stuff. So there are going to be inconveniences, but I can't blame the levels of government for not approving it, especially as if the Jays weren't allowed to come in the summer when cases were much lower and we're in a second wave right now and cases are higher, that it's very hard to rationalize to the public, especially if you're a federal government that's in a minority and I don't want to get reelected. So that
makes sense.
Now again, whatever happens with this vaccine, if it starts to get distributed, the official word is the Raptors are starting the season in Tampa. They may not finish the season in Tampa. I think the door is open for a mid-season move back up if it makes sense, if cases drop or the vaccine gets distributed and we start to see a positive shift. So who knows?
Yeah, it would be super hypocritical if they didn't make the decision, like you said, like when the Jays had the option to do it with cases much lower, the government still said no. It would be interesting to see if this extends, like if this keeps on going, what happens to the next season? Like, are the Raptors playing elsewhere? Are the Jays playing elsewhere? Like, the Jays next season is going to be interesting if they end up playing in Toronto or what. But perfect segue, the Rogers Center. So we'll see if the Jays will be playing in the Rogers Center next summer, next season. But some news came out. There was a report came out about the potential plans to build a new stadium for the Jays. I believe it was 2 plans that came out, right? Like there were 2 separate plans. One was to demolish the Rogers Center and build a new stadium in its place. And then there was another waterfront proposal, I believe, or something, right?
Mm-hmm. That's Plan B.
I think Plan A would probably be more realistic, knowing that Toronto is a collection of, a lot of ugly-looking condos. So that Plan A would probably work very well and be more realistic.
Plan A, I still think that land would be redeveloped, but the stadium may be elsewhere.
But I really think that it's time that you have a ballpark that's dedicated to baseball, and I don't know if you need to have that kind of capacity anymore. Like you can work with like a 35,000 stadium with, like I've seen smaller stadiums in all honesty, the new ones that are open concept, and it's just a different feel for the game, right? Last year I was in Minnesota, so I saw Jace playing the Twins, and the Target Field was pretty cool. My favorite's PNC, and I think there's something to be said about it. And even better news is that they're looking to finance the whole thing privately, so not looking for any government support, at least as of now. So overall, I think I'm all for it. It's a big, gigantic concrete slab that
hate it.
Is extremely ugly, and like I know it served its purpose, and we've seen some pretty cool moments, but I think it's time to put it out to pasture.
Yep.
I completely agree. I don't know if you guys saw. There was I think it was an article where there was some comments by Richard Petty about his time as CEO, where he kind of shortly after that time the Sky Dome was built, he took a trip to Camden Yards. I think it was in 90. When did Camden open? 91 or 92? And he walked into the ballpark and he kind of looked around and he's like, "Oh shit," because he could kind of see that multi-purpose facility. It doesn't, like, we've all watched games there and it just doesn't give you the same feel as going to a real ballpark. Like, the turf, like I can't stand watching the games on turf, either on TV or in person. And just, it's a big cavernous facility. Like, when, like, the windows in center field used to be cool probably in the early 90s, but now you look at it, you're like, it's an eyesore. And they've made improvements here and there where it's kind of improved the experience, the deck in the outfield where you can kind of go stand, but it's just, it doesn't have that feel. I just, the only thing is, thinking about this, where do you play? If you're tearing it down, where are you playing your games?
I say play in Buffalo. You've proved it. It's gone well. And if next year you still have issues with crowd, I know it's a double whammy. You're losing revenue, but at the same time, it's already a lost year. Might as well just tear it down and go for it. Then I don't know if they'll have the approvals that fast. Apparently, I could be wrong, but I think the counselor for that area said that he hasn't been approached in a while. So we'll see where they're at.
Yeah, so in terms of where they play, from what I understand, the South, they can still build on the south part of that land, on the south end of that land, and keep the Rogers Center open, playing there, continuously playing there while building the stadium. So that's from what I would understand.
Can you? I'm just thinking about it. Like,
I haven't seen the map. I haven't seen the maps and the spacing.
Are you talking about across the street where Steam Whistle is, or are you talking about on like the front part of the stadium on the south end?
I thought it was the half of it, like the southern half, right? That would.
I thought it was the southern half, going towards Steam Whistle.
Is that's where the hotel is? I think mostly, right?
Though the hotel is on the other end, so that's if you walk around to between gates 1 and 14. So this would be 5 and 6, and the box office are.
It would be interesting. It would be really interesting.
Apparently it's possible. Apparently, this is now, again, I haven't seen, I don't think, any of the maps or any of the, what do they call those? When you, like, the
blueprints?
Like the blueprints, the specs, whatever have been no models put out. But apparently it's possible. I mean, I would have to think that there is a plan in place to play elsewhere for a period of time. Like, I don't think you'd come up with such a big idea and say, "Oops, oh yeah, what are we going to do?" So I'll think that there's something in mind, or maybe the truth is plan. This is just a leak. Maybe the truth is plan.
Yeah,
is really plan A, and they are going to go. They're going to just completely refurbish that whole land there and move the Jays over to where the Google neighborhood project got got discontinued.
There's no GO train station nearby, right?
No, that's part of it. Maybe that would be a part of it. The city would be also developing more transit towards that area.
Cool.
That's the one thing about this ballpark that is better than most of the ballparks is the ease of getting to it is incredible. Like,
how do you think I feel?
Yeah, you're right there.
I can see it from my balcony.
You could have carpooled with Kevin Pillar, but that's a different story.
Actually, there's a couple Rowdy Tellez building.
So this is a good point. The transit is a big thing, and like, so when BMO Field was built, when they were looking at other sites, transit was a big factor in it. Which, I mean, funny enough, that if you've ever been to a TFC game at BMO, it's a nightmare sometimes getting there. Sure, there's Lakeshore, sure, there's the Gardner, there's Exhibition Go Station, but like it's not exactly when you're looking at streetcars, subway, like it's not the best getting there, and it kind of ruins the experience sometimes, especially when you're trying to get home and you're being packed like sardines into the one GO train that's going home. So like right now, the spot that Rogers Center is in it's perfect because you have everything going. You can drive, you can take the GO, you can take the subway. And you can take the GO from anywhere. Like all cities are coming into Union Station. It's just the area that it's in right now is so perfect that I hope they don't move it, because I like going to ball games in the middle of the city where it's so easy to get to. And I got tons of options at restaurants and bars and things to do after the game. It's just so convenient the way it is right now.
The one thing I'm really looking forward to a new ballpark besides aesthetics is
Food?
Some better concessions.
Yeah.
Like honestly, man, like okay, it's improved a lot over the last 2 to 3 years, but early on, it's like it was
Yeah.
I want to see the plans. I hope that the next leak is an actual proposal. I want to see, like, I want to see if they can pull this off, where if there is the space available to continue playing games at the Rogers Center while they build the stadium, and then once you get to a point that the finishing touches can be done in an off season, you take out, you demolish the old dome. I'm all for it. I think that if it's privately funded, everybody's going to be for it.
That's the key.
There are a lot of benefits. If it's privately funded, you're coming out of a pandemic. A massive privately funded project like this would create a lot of jobs. So,
and it buys a lot of goodwill for a company that generally doesn't have
goodwill. Federal government owns the land around it. Well, the value of their land will go up if it's developed.
Yeah.
The
city would love it, because if it could just add more economically to the city.
And I think so here's one thing I've always not liked about Toronto, and I see the value and importance of condos, but it's just sometimes the downtown becomes an eyesore, and having a true authentic ballpark may at least alleviate, like, you can see something that's beautiful. Like if you see an AT&T park, like from a drone or something besides the water, it looks cool, right? And same thing with PNC by the river. Like, it's just, so maybe, it adds to the aesthetic value. And one thing about Toronto, it always reminds me, and sorry, it's a segue, but Anthony Bourdain, when I don't know if he did an episode in Toronto or he just went in and he says, it's not a good looking city. It's not a good looking town. You've got all the worst architectural fads of the 20th century.
Yeah, in many, because condo. And yes, I'm a hypocrite because I live in one of them.
No, I mean, you need condos. It's not about condos. It's just, it's
part of it is condo.
Architecture, right? You
there
go
is good architecture in the city, but it's all covered up.
Yeah.
Gooderham building is gorgeous. You you see old City Hall. Hall. There is some good architectures around the city, but it's all blocked by condos and the Gardner and that old Rogers Center. But it's nothing new.
Yeah, I mean, the Gardner is one thing. Like they got rid of a lot of the nice buildings that they had like years ago before they kind of changed the rules around it. But yeah, like some of the condos are fine, but it's poor planning. The way the city's laid out.
Yeah,
the Lakeshore is pretty cool. I actually like. I hear your point about the transit issue, but at least the exhibition as a whole, it's a pretty cool place. Like whether you go for the game or you go for Expo,
it's true.
It's a nice atmosphere, right? It's something it's nice to see in the heart of the city. So, yeah, I mean, it would be nice to see a good.
I'm all for it, and unfortunately, there is part of this development is more condos.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's the most realistic plan, because anything that gets
set up new bars, man, new bars, new restaurants, which is always a plus. Office buildings, although again, I think even coming out of a pandemic,
who knows? There might one day
wonder what the value of office space will be in the short term. Sorry.
Well, who knows? There might be a Boxing One studio close by someday near the bar.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, one day. Yeah.
So, we touched a little bit on the exhibition grounds and TFC, so that brings us to the final topic. Little bit sad, but at the same time, I mentioned this before. I'm not entirely. It doesn't really bother me that much. So Toronto FC manager Greg Vanney steps down as manager of the club. Somewhat surprising. There had been talk back in October that the deal had pretty much been done. He just needed to sign, and now it's kind of come to the point where he's gone and TFC needs a new manager. So this is very close to my heart. Greg Vanney was the manager during the best years of the club. Some of my fondest memories over the past few years have been in that stadium watching the teams that he's been managing. So it's sad in one respect, but at the same time, probably time to move on. Like, he used to make a lot of moves that would kind of make me scratch my head, but I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on the move in general? Were you surprised to hear it? I know, Primate, you were when you messaged me or when you messaged us.
Yeah, I don't really travel closely to TFC, so I wasn't aware of anything that was going on with his contract, with the situation. Why do you think he left?
So some of the talk was about he said he's more of a builder, and TFC is kind of at that stage where there's no building that needs to be done. They're now a well-established club. They've been near the top of the league for the past 5-ish years. They have a lot of established players. They're kind of at that point where you're not really nurturing young talent, but you're more bringing in those top guys. And I think his philosophies just didn't jive with where the club was at now. Also, there's a lot of talk about TFC not playing in Toronto this year. The pandemic, they were playing in Connecticut, and apparently it was just really hard for him because he was away from his family. It was kind of a bubble situation when no other team was in a bubble situation because TFC wasn't allowed to play in Toronto. So there's some talk about maybe that probably put a little bit of a strain on him personally, and it's like, I'm pretty sure it's been a tiring few years for him. Like, you look back at post MLS Cup win and then into Champions League and like I'm sure he's probably a little bit burnt out, and it's just time for a new challenge.
Yeah, and I think he's honest about that piece, right? He took the team on when they were the laughing stock of MLS, and taking them to heights. We talk about how Raptors one championship has done wonders for the franchise, and obviously the preceding years of success go along with it. But the fact that you take that team, you win the Supporters Shield, you take them to the MLS final, you lose the final, you come back, you beat the same team, you win a championship, you go to was it the semifinals for it? Yeah, the semifinals that they made it for.
Finals,
yeah, for the CONCACAF Champions League. So you've pretty much done everything you've wanted to, right? And it's true that once you get to that point, you may need a different voice, because now it's no longer about giving that club an identity. You have an identity. It's a well-established club. You have the ability to attract big names. It's how do you evolve from there? So I think I always believe that every coach has a shelf life, and I think it's him being honest when he says he's more of a builder. He can probably go in, and we can see, right, even in like baseball, for example, there's some GMs who are pretty good at setting up the franchises with trades and draft picks. Not very good at pulling the trigger when the team's at the cusp, and do you go for it or you don't? And some of them are pretty good managing that well-established team in a well-stocked farm, but aren't very good at drafting, developing. So I think people have their strengths, and I think from that standpoint, Vanney.
I don't know if it's a strength thing. I mean, he succeeded very well doing building and staying on top. I mean, isn't he going to win coach in line for Coach of the Year this year?
I don't know. Maybe, but I don't know if he wins that. But you're it's a valid point though. Like
something something about it seems obvious. You're in one of the top franchises in the league. You'll probably be paid, if not as the highest paid coach, near the top. You have all the resources you need, expected to win every year, and you say, nah, I want to go rebuild. Something just doesn't seem right. I think it's more in line with maybe the family situation. Maybe he's burnt out.
Yeah, or he may not have had the autonomy, to bring in certain players.
With Bezbachenko gone, maybe that synergy just wasn't there.
Yeah.
And this is just because I can't fully buy the whole, I would rather go and build something up from scratch again after going through all that here. Yeah. And when there are no guarantees that a rebuild will work. And when you talk about shelf life, how many players are left on this team that were on the championship team?
There's still a few core pieces who are, like somebody like Altidore is over here. He's getting up there. Like I think they're starting to. There's some cracks that are starting to form, and it's. But I honestly think that it is probably the autonomy. It's probably the family. It's probably a combination of a lot of things. And I'm pretty sure if any one of us were in that situation where you're away from your family for 3 months, I think it was, like, you're gonna feel that, and it's probably gonna really, like, if somebody put a contract in front of me in October and said, do you want to sign this? But we don't know where we're going to be playing next year. We might be in Connecticut again. Like, it's tough to commit to.
No, that's fair. I accept, but I think it's more probably family.
You're right.
And maybe just that synergy wasn't there with the front office that he may have once had. I'm just as an outsider looking in, and sometimes some of these builder, like, I'm a builder and this team is all set, good to go. Well, I don't know if I fully buy that one. Yeah.
But I mean, like I said, some of my fondest memories are in that stadium with teams that he was coaching, and watching at bars with my brothers and my fiance. Just like, some of the memories are a little bit hazy, but man, those are probably some of the best years of my life, just because of what some partially what he brought. But I mean, having Javinko played a big role. That's why I'm not entirely upset that he's leaving. I think you can find somebody else, and I think if you have that one magical player, it makes a big difference. But Greg, thank you for the memories. They were some fun years.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So with that, I think that brings our episode to a close, boys. It's been hopefully we can get on a more regular schedule, but I think this was a good one. So it's a good spot to end off. So thanks everyone for listening to Box of One. Look out for our next episode. Hopefully it'll be soon. And as always, make sure you subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Subscribe to our podcast. It's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen. Comment on Instagram, on Twitter, interact with us. Let us know if there's anything you want to hear. But honestly, we really appreciate the support, and glad that you guys have been sticking with us, even though we took a little bit of a break. Any closing words, guys?
No, please. And if you liked our episodes or podcasts, just leave us a comment or feedback wherever you listen, or whether it's YouTube or any of the podcast platforms. We'd love to hear from you.